What a beautiful and creative talk. Before I bring Yaryna to stage for the Q&A, just a quick reminder that you can ask questions in the chat, and then some of our awesome team members will add them to the talk documents, and we'll keep track rather of all of it for posterity. Hi Yaryna, welcome to Outlier.
Hello, everyone. Nice to be here.
How are you doing today?
Super excited to be part of. Pretty good, pretty good. Thank you.
I'm excited you were able to join with the newborn at home. I hope he or she is not too sad that you're away for half an hour.
Yeah, hopefully sleeping right now. So if you hear any
Okay.
baby crying, yeah, excuse me for the background noise.
We
But
won't
yeah.
mind. We won't mind. Okay. Are you ready to jump right into the questions?
Sure, let's do that.
So the first question is something we all in the database community, I think, wonder a lot all the time. So what are some of your go-to tools for making such stunning graphics?
Well, it just depends on a stage of the process, I would say. Like I always see any product as consisting on a few stages. So like data cleaning, preparation, then sketching and prototyping, and then actual development and production. So, and all of them have different tools and all of them have different algorithms, so to say. So for data cleaning and data work, I usually work with R or Python, depending on the type of data I work with, or some QGIS simply. For sketching, it could be also R, just a simple ggplot charts to kind of figure out how the data looks like. Do we have any outliers? And what's the story there? And then for production side, I would say, I guess I won't surprise anyone, but D3 is quite popular and we use it a lot. Sometimes when we work with big data sets for optimization purposes and performance purposes, I would love, I usually work with WebGL and GLSL shaders to represent lots of data. But that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Well, that's quite a long list already. So my follow-up question is, do you know how to use all of those tools yourself, or do you have colleagues who each have a certain skill, or does it depend on the project?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say, everyone on our team has a wide range of skills, and sometimes we produce solo projects, which means, each of us could produce it from the very beginning till publication. But it just depends on, complexity of a project, I would say. Obviously, sometimes I could tap someone who has more experience with certain technique, but sometimes it's just me. So yeah, but the life is such. We as journalists have to be flexible and work with different sorts of tools. Yeah.
So just one last follow-up question on that. Do you have any tips for the audience on how to balance out the development versus design skills? Because I do think that's a question a lot of people wonder about. It's quite difficult to be both a great developer and a great designer. And if that's a project you're able to do them by yourself from beginning to end, it sort of means you're good at both. Just wondering if you have any tips for the audience.
Yeah, I would say start with something you feel is the closest to you, or you feel you have the most experience with. Then build up your muscles, build up your skills, and then switch to something different. If you feel like you have enough, a space and opportunity and time to practice it. I would say like both come obviously, almost hand in hand, and it's sometimes it's just a matter of experience to develop your visual eye, so to say, and like just tweaking some design things. But obviously, it's nice to be a good professional, at least in one sphere and then start building muscles in a different one.
Okay. There are many other questions coming in about the process. I think everyone is very curious and very impressed by all of your projects.
Okay.
So in this kind of visual storytelling, do you collaborate with the writers and editors and other video artists throughout the production process, or not, I guess, is the end of the question.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the process is different depending on a project. Sometimes it's just me who is writing, doing the writing and research and reporting and doing visuals. But sometimes, I feel like this story could be told better when we partner with someone. And for instance, for a story about tree inequality, we partnered with the American Forest because it's one of the biggest organizations, probably the biggest one in the US, that specializes on urban forest, so so-called urban forest and urban planning. And I am I'm no expert in urban planning, but I was very passionate about this story and about this data, and it was just like a perfect match of my data viz skills and my journalism skills and Ian's expertise. So it was a co-bylined story.
So building up on that, when you need to learn new skills or maybe a bit of new expertise on a specific topic, how do you go about it? What's your go-to learning
No,
approach?
that's a great question. I'm myself, I'm a self-taught programmer, if I can call myself a programmer.
I'm sure you can.
But I'm a huge proponent of online courses and different sorts of trainings, and I'm a huge fan of observable notebooks. I myself publish code there, and I think that's a fantastic community with lots of things for everyone to learn and to explore and play with. So I usually, if I need to kind of figure out, say for complicated data set, I have to figure out a better, more performant way to represent this data without crashing a browser. I obviously would start somewhere in the WebGL world, and then maybe if I feel like I don't know how to do it and it's a little bit outside my reach, I would probably take another course or two specifically on shaders or a different sort of technique and see if it helps. But also I have a huge luxury of working at a place where so many talented people work. So sometimes I also try to use our internal resources and ask my colleagues for help, and they are super generous with sharing their skills and knowledge. So that's also very helpful.
Okay, that's super interesting to hear. I'm just gonna keep going because we have so many questions, and I just want to cover as many as we can while you're still with us. What are some of your best tricks to get a new or unusual perspective, like the visualization you showed with a horse?
Oh, that's an excellent question. Yeah, obviously brainstorming as straightforward and as simple as it sounds helps a lot. Like I try to look at the data and try to prototype and mock it with different forms and like as many as I can think of and see what works the best. Sometimes the data itself could have a certain type of metaphor, right? Like with gender bias in the workplace. We are talking about hierarchy, about corporate ladder, about some sort of, things that we have specific symbols or metaphors attached just historically in our culture. So that's helpful too. Yeah. Also, my main inspiration place is just shower. getting showering for 20 minutes is super inspirational for me. Always helps me to come up with new ideas. I know I'm just kidding, but yeah. I would say what is really helpful for me, I know there is this idea that sometimes you produce your most interesting and creative work when you are on a tough deadline, or when you are kind of with a very strict time frames. But I strongly disagree. At least it doesn't work for me, because whenever I am on a very tight deadline, I default to what I know would work. It's like, I know this is sound, and this is gonna work, but if I want to be creative, I just let my my imagination wander for a while.
So when you say for a while, does that mean you would think about it and sort of set it aside if you have time and then come back to it, or?
It just depends on how much time available I have, but usually, yeah, I would try to do a first round of sketches and then get enough sleep and come back to it in the morning and review them and see if I can come up with even a better idea.
So sleep and shower does the trick. Good to
Yeah.
know. It's a good thing we're taking notes. In all of these creative projects, do you need to consider the development time, and does it usually take longer than a project that doesn't require an unusual approach?
Yeah, that's a good question. We try to budget some time, obviously. Um, Sometimes it's not that hard, but again, it's a matter of experience. Just sometimes you know how much time you need to develop a certain thing, to test it, to to run it by all the folks involved in the process and stuff like that. But obviously, sometimes we have to postpone. But it could happen because of various things. Yes, the most common one is getting updated data and waiting for the updated data set, for instance, before the publication date. That's pretty common situation. But yeah.
So building on that, how do you convince your boss of the return on investment of doing these more elaborate visualizations?
Oh, yeah.
Questions are getting tougher and tougher, I think.
Yeah. No, I'm super I was super lucky to work with Stuart, who is a brilliant data journalist and an exceptional visual journalist, I would say. And I always felt very supported when approaching my boss with some crazy ideas. So luckily, that was my experience.
So coming back to learning a little bit, there are a couple of questions that came also in the chat bubble. We're talking about it. So following up on learning new skills, how do you fold learning as part of producing professional published work under tight deadlines? Especially, you said you default to what you know. So sometimes if the deadline is tight, so how do you push yourself out of your comfort zone in terms of technique?
Yeah, that's a great question. The thing is that I always there are just a few types of projects, right? There are projects that should be published the next day, and projects that could wait till the end of the week, so to say. And for instance, the project was tree coverage. It's a evergreen story. So I mean, it's a problem that have been there for years now, and not likely to change unless we do something. So it's not like a breaking news story, and I have enough time and space to experiment, to try different things, to learn new things if I have to. Yeah. And I also excuse me, and I also try to learn lots of things on my free time. I I consider Database to be on a break of my hobby slash work slash passion, and it's just like this whole process for me. It's almost a never ending. So yeah.
I can definitely relate, and I think a lot of people in the audience can
Yeah.
as well. Would you be able to tell us how long a typical project like that takes? You spoke a little bit about deadlines, but I think given the creativity and the iterations, some people in the audience are wondering.
Yeah, it depends on the scope of the project, and sometimes it depends also on capacity and you know some peculiarities about data. Say we might also postpone a project because we are waiting for an updated data set to be available or stuff like that. But generally speaking, I think it's a matter of weeks, if not days, but just depending on how big the project is.
Yeah, weeks and alright, days sound a little tough for what you produce. There are a couple of questions around how your visualizations were received and how you test them. So, what feedback have you gotten from the readers about your work? And I think specifically the creative visualizations that you spoke about.
Well, uh, I was lucky enough to get mostly very positive feedback. And for instance, I know that the story about inequality at the workplace was very well received. I should say. At least I saw people at you know commenting that this particular layout made it very clear what's happening, and this animation of dots either moving forward or being left behind was very straightforward and made this complex computer simulation very clear and straightforward. Um, so and this really warms my heart, so to say. I'm very happy to see that the idea that is behind this design is actually effective. And yeah, I would say the feedback is very positive, and it's very it's like a special additional advantage of being a journalist is getting gratitude
Public.
emails. Yeah, and realizing that the work you're doing is not only about, it's not just like a job or a profession. It's actually something that could contribute to making difference and changing the state of affairs.
Yeah, we had a speaker this morning, Jan. I don't know if you were tuning in, who spoke about acts of journalism when you take something important and show it and communicate it to the world. So what you're saying also sounds related. So wrapping up on the feedback side of things, before you actually get that public feedback that comes after publication, do you do any kind of user testing?
Yeah, within the company we do, and obviously I test all my stories on my husband. So.
In the earlier session we spoke about the mom test, husband test also sounds okay.
Yeah.
This is also what I do, and somehow the husbands can be the harshest critics.
Oh yeah.
If it doesn't work, mine would definitely say it.
Yeah.
Okay, we have 2 minutes left. Let's see if we can do one more question. A bit of a sneaky one, maybe. Let's try it.
Okay.
This may not be something you can share, but as a software developer myself, I'm wondering if the New York Times has template apps for animated scrolling stories, or if each is completely built from scratch each time.
Yes and no. It just depends on personal preference, whatever folks prefer to work with. Like we have enough, creative freedom to experiment with tools that we think are the best fit for a given project.
Okay, that does
Sometimes
sound
folk,
like fun.
yeah, sometimes
Sorry.
folk build their templates themselves. So, for instance, I could create some templates that I reuse all over, you know, from one project to another. But it's just really a matter of personal preference.
So there's no rule of rule of thumb where you say if it's sort of something simple that we've done in the past, we move quicker if we just use this template?
Yeah, because the range of skills is so vast and versatile, I would say. Like some people are more comfortable with working with I don't know, vanilla JavaScript. Someone prefers Svelte, someone prefer different framework. It's just a matter of really personal preference and what people think is a given project.
Okay. Well, that's all super interesting. There are a lot of follow-up questions. Every time I ask you a question, there are about 3 similar questions that follow. So if you have time with babies and all, I encourage you to take a look at the talk notes and try and answer some additional questions. There are a couple that I didn't ask live because I think they're better answered in writing, such like suggestions for inspirational books to read, or to learn some of the development skills. So if you have time, I do encourage you take a look at that, and also at the chat, because there are a lot of nice words and compliments and encouragement there.
Thank
So
you.
thanks so much for joining us today. It was lovely having you. I hope you
Thank
get
you,
to
everyone.
enjoy at least a little bit of the rest of the conference.
Thank you, everyone.
See you around. Bye.